Hi everyone, Diego here from De Oro Music, and I just want to take a few minutes to talk about what I found to be a good solution for flight cases when I used to fly. I started out with a heavy-duty fiberglass case, which served me quite well, but I really started to become nervous of theft. When you have a very nice case, then I felt it marked the guitar, and I became more worried about theft than I did about damage. So I started looking for another solution. It was quite heavy, but it did offer great protection, physically anyways, for the guitar. What I ended up settling on was a plywood case, a TKL plywood case, and what I looked for was that it was arched on the top and the bottom, both top and bottom. A lot of flight cases are only arched on one side, and it's important that they're arched both sides because, of course, compressions can come from either side. You never know how it's going to be stacked and what's going to be against it. So that's very important. There's a weak point in the headstock in this area. And so often you'll see a break here. The case looks fine, everything looks in perfect order. You open the case and then you see a crack along this area. It's a natural weak spot where the headstock angles back. Now there are a few steps that you can take to protect that. One is detune. Now if you're playing a steel string that has a truss rod, I wouldn't detune too much because you need the tension and counter tension to keep a balance on the neck. But I suggest about a whole tone. So you detune all of your strings a whole tone. On a nylon string guitar with no truss rod, I used to drop it quite a bit more. You don't want to remove all the tension, but I would drop it down probably the equivalent of a major third, maybe even a fourth. I would drop it down quite a bit. And that would relieve some of the tension so that if this dropped, the vibrations created wouldn't bother this weak point as much. At least that was the theory. And then the other thing that was very important is to pack the headstock area. So the idea is you create a cradle and really a molding so that any vibrations caused if this falls would absorb the vibrations and your neck would remain intact. So you create that by first filling the bottom part. So I filled this bottom so that the neck sits off of the neck rest of the case by about an inch. And you want to take into account that the headstock is on an angle, so don't stuff this end as much as here. You want to keep it equal, but it'll be stuffed sort of on a diagonal downward. As I said, the neck is resting about an inch above the neck rest of the case, and now I'm going to pack in over top. Now you don't want to compress the newspaper too much because the idea is that as you close the case, that will compress the newspaper and mold it both to the shape of your headstock, and that will also offer the support and the vibration abatement that you're looking for. So we have both sides packed, close the case. As you can see, I've got to push this down a little bit. Now aside from clamping it down, at that stage what I would also do is take some duct tape and just wrap around this area. For a couple of reasons. Sometimes these can come undone when you're flying. And if they all come undone, of course, your case top opens, your guitar falls out. So you put the tape around there, it will prevent this from opening, should that ever be a possibility. And it also gives some support. Again, you know how these seams on my case, they split. Part of the reason is the pressure from that newspaper molding we created creates a lot of pressure on the case, and so it split the seams. You put the tape on, it offers some reinforcement so that the case can remain intact and keep its integrity. And then lastly, what I would do is, once it had arrived, of course I would check it immediately just to make sure everything was okay. But as soon as I had verified that it was fine and wasn't damaged, then I would close the case back up and leave it as long as possible. It can be very cold in the storage on an airplane. That alone can damage the instrument, damage the finish, or the wood itself. So as long as you can, keep it inside the case closed and let it acclimatize for as long as possible. So there you have it. Some basic tips on how to get your instrument to the gig safely. I hope they're helpful. If you have some tips from your own experience, please leave them in the comments. We're all in this together, so let's work together and protect our instruments. One last thing that I could say, actually two. One is always have a name tag on your case. Just always have your name tag on it. And the other is, as much as possible, don't use a fragile sticker when you're flying. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it just seems to work better when you don't. It's almost like the baggage handlers are taunted when they see those stickers, so it becomes a game. Just go easy on the fragile stickers. Sleeper case doesn't look like anything special. That's always been what worked for me. Good luck, and look forward to hearing your comments.